You know, everybody says, well, a TV series is always about a dysfunctional family in some way. It's either an office of dysfunctional people or a house full of dysfunctional people. It just seems to work, doesn't it?
Comedic dynamic that had both on set and in real life enabled the show to really kind of walk a line between broad, silly comedy and then still have moments of emotional depth.
Mike Fox had all the people at the office, and when things were going right, how he managed, you know, did damage control and spin things around, that's when Spin City was at its best.
I recognized at the time that I was working with brilliant people. Just like, wow, you guys are good.
A lot of us were so happy to be doing what we were doing and to be doing it with the people that we were doing it with.
I would say that we were very lucky to have someone that was so confident in his own ability and confident in, sort of in his place in the business that he gave us our moments.
We were working with these pros. I mean, Michael J. Fox, who is the greatest, you know, he's the greatest in that medium probably ever. So I always thought to myself, well, I've got the best teacher.
It was an interesting project because here I am schlepping Mike Fox back into television, in effect, you know, or we're schlepping each other back in. And I felt a big responsibility because of who he is, and, you know, and this was not an easy thing to do. Not many actors have done it. You know, come back and create a whole new character and succeed with it. It was really a testament to his skill.
And I'd love Family Ties, but I didn't want to do that again. I thought if I went back to television, I want to do something different. And it seemed like that ship had come in. I mean, there was this new energy and talent in the television business. And so I thought, well, if I was ever going to come back, this would be a time to do it. Mike Flaherty was an operator, you know, and I think I loved his facility with people and his confidence and his sense that he had a very clear sense of what was right. And it might not have skewed with what other people thought was right, but he looked at what was expedient and toward an end that he thought was good.
The cool thing about real politics is when we did our research, you have to engage in some sketchy behavior and some immoral behavior, and Mike as a performer has the ability to do immoral things and still have you as an audience like him.
You said there'd be a show of support for him.
Yes, a show of support. Not actual support.
It's Alex Keaton with power, you know, so I think we were able to get both of those things.
I know Gary had some issues with, I would call, you know, Mike a weasel or something. And he totally read that wrong and thought that I was demeaning the character, putting the character down, or saying that in some pejorative sense. But I wasn't at all. I think that he was just, he was a good guy and always was a good guy, and his means were crafty and kind of deceptive, manipulative, but they fit the form.
This is politics, James. I receive. I sense the mood of the public. I respond. I shape it. I don't have time to feel.
My idea for the show was much more politically based. And I must say I was the only one who wanted to do that.
Gary Goldberg and I connected over basketball, first off. I was very happy that I was a high school athlete type because the guy is still one of the better basketball players on the face of the planet. He played in college. I think he was always on the lookout for comedy writers that enjoyed the sport so they could also just be a body in his game.
My sports background really helped me because I understood team and I understood how to make a team better. I understood how to work, that there was a direct relationship between hard work and success.
I was lucky enough to work with him on DreamWorks' first ever sitcom. It's a short-lived show called Champs. Gary wrote about his high school life. And we really hit it off, you know, and that show came and went really quickly. But very soon after, Gary called me up and said, how do you feel about trying to make a TV show for Mike Fox? And, you know, I was sleeping on someone's couch, and I said, are you kidding me? You know, it was like noon, I was still wearing boxers, so I, of course, said yes.
Bill was perfect for me, and I was really impressed with the work he had done on Champs and looking for a way to stay in business with him, you know. And at the last minute, I just thought, I'm going to call Bill Lawrence. You know, maybe he'll come to New York with me and meet Mike, and we'll come up with this show together.
And I realized why I hadn't seen that many good comedic film scripts is because all the good comedy writers are writing for television.
It happens so fast. TV doesn't happen this way. We pitched him the idea, and then we went on a whirlwind tour around the East Coast, literally writing the pilot and faxing the pages to Mike.
They wrote the script in like 4 days for Spin City, and they sent it to me over the fax machine. It was actually back in the day when the fax machine was this constant roll that came out. This thing is reaming out of my fax machine, my apartment in New York, and I'm reading it and kind of cutting it. Tracy's cutting the page, and I'm handing her the page I just read, and I was laughing, and I just thought it was fantastic. And I just loved Bill, and I loved Gary's energy for it, and I loved the idea. And I loved the script, and so we just said, let's do it.
When Mike committed, we had nothing. We didn't even have a pilot. And so once we finished the pilot script, because of Mike Fox's involvement and Gary's involvement, it all happened very fast. Networks bid on this, and instead of just picking up a pilot, a network actually picked up 24 episodes of the show.
This was the script that pilot season. Certain pilots there's great word of mouth, there's buzz on them, everything like that. But this was so good because it was getting on the air.
First thing was, who's Mike going to be? And I remember something that Gary said that I know Mike liked, which was, you're the type of guy that when he walks into a room, everybody else shuts up, because what you say is the most important. And it's true, and it's the first scene of the pilot. There's a bunch of people in the bullpen, and Mike Fox, the deputy mayor, walks in, and everybody gets quiet to hear what he has to say.
All right, everybody, listen up. As of about 1 minute ago, Sanitation Workers Union rejected our final offer. They are now officially on strike. It's happening?
One of the things that we had that was most difficult was, we're bringing back Alex Keaton, and yet within the first 3 minutes you'd like people to forget Alex Keaton. So how do you do that? And we spent a lot of time thinking about that first scene, because I wanted at the end of that first scene for the audience to forget Family Ties. I still wanted them to watch it in reruns, but not be thinking about it here. And I think we succeeded.
The pilot, the most interesting thing about the show for me was, aside from the writing and the characters, was the look. One of the things that Gary and I really wanted to do is have people believe that these people were really working in and running the city.
What would people who live in New York be talking about that day, that week that was going on in New York?
It was just a run-of-the-mill orgasm. I didn't mean to scare you. Could you hold a second, Mom? I worked up some new numbers for you, Mike.
I want this show, when you see it, to feel like you saw something, those guys knew what they were doing.
Give it another pass.
All right, but I wouldn't be optimistic.
Oh, I'll let you get back to your mom. Before she loses her erection.
Well, in Spin City, we always from the outset wanted New York to be a character in and of itself. And, get out there and use the streets of the city and use the people of the city and use the energy of the city. And I think we were able to do that to a large extent. I think it helped with the integrity of the city. It just wasn't one of those shows. I mean, Friends, which was a great show and I love, but they said they were in New York. We would show you we were in New York. You could smell the pastrami.
What I really remember was we felt like we were doing something really unique because, for instance, having Tommy Shalami there, we see the work that he's done on The West Wing. I mean, that's what he does, and I feel like he brought that to Spin City.
The way Tommy directed the pilot, we set up that style, the constant movement. We created a set that was deep, that had these kind of hallways that then would dump out into proscenium with the bullpen, and so scenes would start out of the view of the audience, so they could see it on the monitors, because we do these long tracking shots and dollies and steady cams, and it was real motion, just constant movement. We at the beginning we called ourselves the ER of comedy. We wanted to have that kind of pace.
Mike, if I were deputy mayor, there never would have been a garbage strike.
Stuart, I'm sure there are 100 reasons why you think you deserve my job.
Oh, good. You read my manifesto.
Tommy Shalami had more or less given us the cliff notes for how to shoot this show.
He set up the dynamic. It was, I remember that the pilot was a 2-week rehearsal. Usually you do a week. We had an extra week. And, he had that ethereal job of not 100% knowing who the characters were because the writers didn't know. That's a really, in retrospect, tricky thing.
On Spin City, we did 20, 30 scenes. It was so complicated, these short little quick snippets. But we wanted to shoot them in a way and pace them in a way that it wouldn't be difficult for an audience to watch it. I mean, the live audience. We knew we could edit it together for the television audience. We still wanted it to play like a theater piece. And all that pacing and all that was established in the pilot by Tommy.
Hey, people, we got garbage in the streets. We got a weather report calling for temperatures in the mid-90s with no breeze. By 11 o'clock, the city's going to smell like a giant foot. People are going to be hurling themselves into the East River. And we all know who everybody's going to blame, don't we?
Good morning, everyone. Hey, Flaherty, how's our city?
Oh, couldn't be better, sir.
That's what I like to hear.
The scene I always remember in the pilot, when I knew we were on the right track, was when I said to Tommy, Tommy said, I need to get on the other side of the bed. And I was on this side of the bed with Carla, and I need to get on the other side of the bed for the way he wanted to shoot it. And I had to take off a pair of sweatpants. And I said, well, I'll just do that in midair. I'll flip over the bed. He said, well, yeah, can you do that? And I said, well, I don't know, but I want to do it. And that's why I think the scene worked, so I just did it. And when you're acting and when you're doing stuff like this, those are the moments you know you're on the right track. When you think of something preposterous and then it works.
The critical reaction was spectacular. Spectacular. I don't read the reviews a lot, but you know, I was concerned for Mike, especially his return to television and how different it was. But really it was best reviews Michael Fox, just how great he was. So I was really, you know, I did look at some of those just to really feel good and proud for him.
What we knew going into the pilot was that there was this kind of reunion happening between Gary Goldberg and Michael J. Fox, and at that point, what that translated to was they had a lot more say in the TV show than you normally would when you just start out with a pilot.
The casting is, I think of all the things I'm most proud of on that show is the casting. I mean, I was so proud of that cast and so thrilled with the work they did and the way they made the characters their own and what they brought to it, and just to a person, they were fantastic.
You really didn't have to give me a corsage, James.
Gay, Stuart. The word is gay. Only has one syllable. I know you can say it.
Excuse me, Mike. I'm sorry. The press is on me like locusts, and every question's about Bronstein. Did he inhale? Did he exhale? Did he roll his own, or did he smoke it out of a gong?
I'm detecting abnormal estrogen levels, Captain.
In any given scene, everybody had great jokes. Everybody had great moments, you know? And he promoted the ensemble because he's smart, and he knew that that would only make him, if he was riding on top of a really great ensemble, that only makes for a better show and only makes him look better.
Hold on a second. Paul couldn't be here. He asked me to tape it.
Okay, one last item. I'm having a secret meeting tomorrow morning without Paul. I'd like you all to show up around 5 a.m.
4:30's better for me, Mike.
We were learning how to integrate all the characters in, because how much time can you spend away from Michael Fox? You know, because A, you want these characters to grow on their own. B, the audience is watching for one reason at that point. It's Michael. You know, how much can you keep him out?
Yeah, listen, Stu, why don't you go in there instead of me, all right? In case the mayor needs any help.
You trust me?
Yeah, you're the right guy.
It's a testament to Gary Goldberg that one of the things that we did before we started writing episodes is talked a lot about what makes each character tick and who are they and what's their background, and tried to give them a bunch of those moments early on. The coolest thing about this cast is each one of them took material we gave them and elevated it and took ownership of the characters.
His mores and his ethics were solid, and his relationship and his loyalty to the mayor was I think, really important to him and something he valued.
Paulie, you're my block and back. You're going right up the middle to the press room.
You got it, Coach.
All right, Lassiter. Everybody in. And right.
As young as he was, Mike Flaherty was the leader of these guys and was their captain and was their example. And that was very much the role I was in as an actor and producer. And you have to make tough decisions. Mike had to make tough decisions. I had to make tough decisions. Like, I knew what I did, and I knew what I could do, and I knew what I needed to do it. But to work with these other actors and these other performers, in some cases, just finding out what they could do and saying, you do this really well. But when this kind of material is right in your wheelhouse, and you have to trust yourself with it because you can bang it out of the park, And to see them do that was just really exciting.
I can't believe that reporter having the gall to ask me if I were homophobic. I mean, even if I were prejudiced against gays, I'd want them to get married, give them a taste of the nightmare the rest of us live through every day.
I always understood that it was really about Michael and it was about the deputy mayor, but I always had to keep in mind that the mayor always thought it was about the mayor. So it was sort of a strange sort of juggling, emotional juggling act to constantly be thinking it was about me, but when I was actually doing the job, to realize that I was there to support everybody else, and particularly Michael.
How are we doing in here?
Mr. Mayor, perfect timing as usual. I think we're pretty close to making a decision.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
Thank you for asking me to be a part of this administration. I accept. And I promise you, as long as you're in office, I'm going to be your worst nightmare.
Mike, is that good?
As originally conceived, I think the mayor was a bit more of a bad guy. I think he was sort of a jerky kind of guy, rather than a, I don't want to say airhead, but yeah, there's an airhead quality. There was sort of a Connecticut spoiled rich guy quality, and that I really wanted to emphasize the detached quality, which I really liked about him, rather than the jerky quality, which Michael would have to sort of like always clean up because I was doing bad things, as opposed to just doing sort of disconnected things.
So this shouldn't drag on. Thank you.
And there's your soundbite.
All right, we're golden.
Mr. Mayor, would you consider marching in the gay pride parade this week?
What are you, drunk?
The mayor was always somebody who had grown up in an environment in which he delegated. You know, he delegated everything. I think I brought that to the part a little more than what they wanted. I think I brought a sweetness to the part that they hadn't really envisioned.
Barry Bostwick, Mayor Randall Winston. I think they just thought the name sounded mayoral. At least his name is my name, and the great thing about it was when I first met Barry, I asked him to hopefully make the character very popular so I could get great tables in New York. So, you know, he said he would do his best.
Remember, let's try to pump this up a little.
Mike, please, I'm a master at this. Ladies and gentlemen, the mayor. I am the guy who was a press secretary.
What the hell was that?
What, are you kidding? I killed out there.
Who is supposed to know all information and know all things, and yet he's kept in the dark.
I can't take this anymore, Mike. I can't take it. I don't know what's real and what's not. I don't know day from night, good from evil. I'm lost.
And that's the role of the press secretary. I see where that is the comic bent that this character should have.
I'm the number 2 man in the office. I should be number 1, but they gave it to Mike. I think it's because he has better hair.
Mostly, up until that point, I'd been cast as like the sensitive best friend, or, you know, I did a Western. I did one Western in my career, and in Western, you want to be the guy that comes into town and kills everybody. You don't want to be like the sensitive guy who's a widower and lost his pig farm to some bankers. That's not what you want to do, right? And so I was kind of tired of being the nice guy, and it was like, oh, I have an opportunity to be paid to be a pig, you know, and just to let all that out. And so I thought, well, let's see how that goes, and it worked out.
Morning, Nikki. Is she decent?
She's okay.
It was apparent that Stewart was the malcontent. He was ambitious. He was bitter. He was, sort of overreaching and thwarted by Mike.
When you look at me, all you see is a gay person. I'm just a guy, Stuart. I'm a friend of yours.
I know that.
Oh, really? Well, if Paul had taken you home, would you have worried then?
No, but he's not gay.
Stuart, just because I'm gay, it doesn't mean I sleep with every man I get a chance to. Look at you. You're straight. Do you sleep with every woman you get a chance to?
Yes!
There was research involved for Carter because I was so afraid of being a stereotype. I didn't want to play into a stereotype. I wanted to honor the character the way I want to honor every character, but I was afraid of becoming, you know, a sketch comedy. Oh, the gay guy on the show, which I became anyway, but I'm saying I wanted that to be an honorable, you know, position on the show. And so, yeah, I read a lot about gay politics, and I read about sort of the history of the gay movement, really.
Carter Haywood was based on me, loosely based on me. You know, I don't want to sound too grand, but you know, we were two bald gay black men in New York. He was such a unique character at the time because he was not this flaming, sort of flamboyant, exaggerated character. He was a real guy, you know, who was doing his part in the mayor's office and had, you know, he was trying to date.
I don't want you to take this personally.
Oh, why would I, Mike? Just because if I was in a monogamous, faithful relationship with a man for 10 years, I would never be allowed to marry him. But if I met some strange woman in a bar, we could be married within an hour, and every state in the union would applaud it just like that.
Mind telling me what bar that is?
One of the most fun things about the character became for me ways of watching this man maintain his dignity and lose it every time, you know, and somehow things just conspired to, he'd be dignified and then it would drag him right down into the gutter and he would shatter into 1,000 pieces and then have to build up again.
I was really excited when Mike offered me this job. You know, I was always really good at math, but I didn't want to end up in some boring job, you know, like an accountant or a bookkeeper.
I think I responded to Nikki originally because I liked how no nonsense she was.
So I'm doing it, Mike. I'm getting married. What am I doing? I don't know, I thought I could put this dress on and it wouldn't affect me, but I mean, well, look at me.
Felt to me like a very New York character, and I felt like there was a lot of potential to really have that character represent a real New York woman. And, you know, that was exciting to me. It's fun to me as an actor, to play things that are very specific, you know, to a place or a time. And that she seemed like a woman who was strong and a working woman, and yet dealing with things that seem very real to young working women, you know. I feel like we kind of learned on the job. To me, it was more important to the job description. It was always pretty vague anyway, like exactly what the job descriptions were. You know, some of them had very specific job descriptions, and then, you know, we were always like, oh yeah, Nikki's an accountant. Yeah, we didn't see Nikki doing a lot of accounting. You know, so I feel like the job description was less important than the person that she was and the world that she was living in. And I think I kind of felt like, you know, I got that covered. I know.
I'm writing the mayor's speech to the city college administrators, but I only started like 2 minutes ago.
Oh, just give us what you got.
Good morning, city college administrators.
James Hobart is the mayor's speechwriter. Naive guy. I think the reason Mike Flaherty hires him is because he's not jaded, and he was working in New York City.
Michael, I hope I didn't get James here into any trouble. I dragged him over to the Regency for breakfast.
Mike, $11 for 2 eggs. Back in Wisconsin, I once bought a dozen eggs for 60 cents. There were 4 double yolkers.
I bet your family still talks about that.
And just somebody that doesn't patronize what's right in front of him. It's very real to him.
Telling me you don't feel the least bit guilty about any of this?
I don't have time to feel.
So that's the way it works?
That's the only way it works.
James, I liked about James is, you know, he didn't edit. It was, okay, you're in front of me, this is the situation, I'm gonna write about, you know, it wasn't cynical.
Why don't you two go find a room and don't come out till you figure out a way to make balls bounce at midnight.
Doing it in front of a live audience is the best amalgam of theater and movies, because you still get to play to an audience. You got that symbiotic relationship. You get their laughter, it propels you, you do better, and you get paid a handsome sum, which you don't always get in theater.
It's an interesting, wonderfully complicated process, shooting in front of a live audience when you're doing a show is hopefully as edgy as ours was.
So, both of you guys are in a rowboat. No, stop me if you've heard this one.
You rehearse a lot without an audience, obviously, through the week, but it's hard to figure out once the writers and people have heard the same joke 15 or 20 times, like, oh God, now you're on Thursday, you've heard that, and you have to remember, no, you laughed at that Monday at the table read. When we did that moment works.
I love performing in front of a live studio audience. It's When you do a sitcom and a multi-camera show in front of an audience, it's like you're doing a 22-minute play, a new one every week.
The worst part of it being that my parents lived in Connecticut, so they came to every single episode of the show, and every night on show night, I would try to walk onto the set looking like an adult, that was in charge of things, and the very first thing I would see was my mom going like that, and I still cringe sometimes, even though I love her.
At that point, I think we were seeing 70% live in front of the audience, 30% material that we had shot outside. And that's really a lot of material, because most of the time, if you're shooting that, it's either at night, so it's the end of your day, so that's one of the reasons we weren't going home anyway, or you're doing it during the day and then you don't have a chance to rehearse that other stuff during the day. So there just weren't enough hours to do it.
Gary David Goldberg and Bill Lawrence were there, oh yeah, moment to moment. I mean, they were the ones that you feared, from the moment you walked on the set. And they were the daddies, they were the ones that you tried to really please.
There was a feeling of, we are doing this for our captain, even to the point of him being our dad.
Good morning, people.
You can, if you listen to some of the laugh track, when I say laugh track, it was all the laughter is from the live audience. But if you hear the laughter in the background, there you will be able to hear Gary's laughter. It was ambrosia to me. It kept me going. It was adrenaline. It sated me so much when I heard that I delivered the joke correctly.
Mike, I'd really like that answer now. Is the mayor going to come out for or against same-sex marriages?
Gay marriages? Oh, no, mayor's against.
We oftentimes didn't know how big the laughs were, because Goldberg would come up to us and say, "Did you hear that?" He would be so thrilled. He was like, it killed.
Tomorrow, I'm coming with the entire parish to talk about our security issues. I want a plan for keeping those hooligans off the property.
You could put a big picture of yourself out front. That might do the trick.
I like the idea of one director. That was another thing, again, in terms of getting the family, getting the team. I didn't want new people coming in each week. I wanted someone who knew what we had done last week. We didn't have to, rebattle those again. Things had been settled. We're all growing together. I like the idea of one director.
And then Lee Shallot, who was our first director for the first season, she brought this sort of mothering kind of, nurturing kind of caring, sort of sat there and let us all just sort of birth ourselves.
Lee, I think, sort of as a director, I remember her really kind of helping us mine the vulnerability of each character. The writing, the funny stuff, the joke stuff was always there. And the heart was there, because that was Gary. Gary Goldberg, I will always say, to Gary's credit, always wanted the heart as well as the funny, and Lee helped mine that.
There's one moment where I realized I think it was 97 or 98. 98 that I wanted to have brain surgery. And so I had to tell them, because I didn't know there's a chance that it might not work out, so I didn't want them to hear that there was something that happened in my brain surgery and had to do brain surgery. So I told them about it then. The bigger moment was a couple years later when I realized I just couldn't carry on in the same way and do the show. And that was tougher, because I called everybody into my dressing room and told them, but that uncertainty kind of was about their careers and about what they were going to do.
The immediate reaction at the time was, well, my friend is going through something really serious here. Like I said, we had been through children being born and relatives' illnesses and deaths and all kinds of things. And this was one of those big life moments that, intruded into the show.
Mike doesn't allow, there's no time for, oh gosh, I'm so sorry. That moment, the absolute, he's not about that. And so if he's the conductor orchestrating, you're going to be taking your cue from him. He never wallowed or showed you the rocks in the backpack. He's like, all right, let's get these. I mean, he's all about getting to the other side, not limping.
Mike was a guy who never missed a day of work. It never happened. You could put him there with pneumonia, and all our actors were that way. If you're ill, but you come and do the show, and then you're ill in between the scenes, And all of a sudden, Mike would have a doctor's appointment, have something, and this was unusual.
On Friday night, he, rightly, properly, he's the star of the show, needed to be in optimum health. And his optimum health could only last a finite amount of time.
But his will and his energy and his stick-to-itiveness, guts, still wanted to do it. And that was the sad part, was that you could see that he still wanted to do it. He still wanted to go out on the ice, you know, and play A-ball, you know, and he couldn't, and it was just too dangerous for him.
In my head, making Mike happy was making the show good. And sometimes I worried that he's such a good guy that I would go to his office and say things like, can you rollerblade down into into the SEAL tank? Can you? And he never said no.
It's one of great God's awful tricks, is that something that somebody does so well, he's now prevented from doing.
And he just was just so heartbroken about telling us that you go, well, wait a minute, it should be the other way around. You know, he was just so moving and moved by the effect it would have on the cast, the hundreds of people that worked on the show, you know.
I'd hoped what would happen was what did happen, was that we'd find a way to carry on with the show. Not the least of my wanting it to go on was that I own part of the show, so as long as it went on with whoever, I mean, it's good news for me. But I also wanted them to be secure in their jobs and have some sense of what was happening. And at the moment that I told them that I was going to leave the show, that certainty wasn't there.
The decision to continue the show was made with Mike's blessing, because we would never have gone on without that.
God gave him fame and talent and money, and then afflicted him with this disease so that he could go out and help millions of people for the rest of mankind. Because without him, Parkinson's, the light at the end of the tunnel would be so much dimmer unless Michael had been there. And now it's close to a beacon.
He's such an inspirational guy, the way he's handling it. He left Spin City, he left television to ostensibly not work as hard, and I would say he works harder now than he ever did. You know, as a lobbyist and a political activist for Parkinson's.
I have never satisfied a woman in bed. And I have no problem with that.
The amazing thing for me was his transformation between somebody that was, you know, purely dealing with something, a physical ailment, to then being okay to go out and be as sharp a comedian as you'll ever see, you know. And I still think about it a lot.
I learned a lot from Michael. I mean, by observing Michael and watching him and how he was able to sort of break a story down to its basics and not be so concerned about the minutiae of his story until maybe the last moment. He's a very bright, very intelligent craftsman of comedy, and to be part of that, I walked away a much enlightened actor in terms of comedy timing, how to get out of scenes and into scenes, and he was always very generous with his knowledge to us.
I basically just write exaggerated versions of myself and Michael Fox and the people around me, and continue to do so.
We were all in it together. We all loved it together. We all had resentments together. But that's what comes from family life, too.
It really became this really great insulated and insular kind of world, but a funny world. I don't think I've laughed as much or as consistently since or before as I did during that show.
I don't think anyone ever had as much fun as I had. I don't think anyone still has such strong, loving feeling about the people that I've worked with.
I think I learned the importance of family, and that it's really important to have that kind of relationship with the people that you're working with. You know, now having done a lot of things since Spin City, I realize how special and unique that group was. And how genius it was that that group was put together by Gary and Michael.
And the nicest group of people I've met. I mean, truly, like, quality people that you love. And so, you know, magic. I remember, you know, when people say you must miss the show, I do, and I certainly had fun performing it, but I miss hanging out with everybody and having lunch and cracking each other. I mean, the showing up, the day to day, and that was a joy. That was a privilege.
I'm really proud of what I accomplished in the 10 years after that diagnosis. And I'm really grateful to the people, Gary, the crew, the cast, Nell Fortenberry, the people that I worked with, and the public to allow me to live out a lot of stuff that I wanted to live out. And in the years since then, in the years since I left the show.